On the night of March 4, 2022, a woman in Summit County, Utah, called 911. Her husband wasn't breathing, he was cold. She found him at the foot of their bed. Her name was Kouri Richins. She was a real estate agent, a mother of 3 young boys, and within a year she published a children's book about coping with the loss of a parent. 4 years later, a jury would convict her of aggravated murder. This is the story of how investigators unraveled a crime that was never meant to be solved. What made this case different wasn't DNA or fingerprints. It wasn't an eyewitness. It was something far more damning, the digital trail Kouri left behind. Hundreds of deleted text messages, Google searches about lethal doses, questions about whether police could recover what she'd erased. The phone remembered everything. And then there was the housekeeper, the one person who knew where Kouri got the fentanyl that killed her husband. Kouri Richins grew up on a cattle ranch in rural Utah. He served an LDS mission in Mexico City, graduated from the University of Utah, and built a masonry business from nothing. By his early 40s, he'd become one of the most successful contractors in Summit County. He drove nice trucks, owned property, provided well for his family. He and Kouri married in June 2013. Before the wedding, they signed a prenuptial agreement. If Eric died while married to Kouri, his entire business would transfer to her. They had 3 sons together, Carter, Ashton, and Weston. At the time of Eric's death, they were 9, 7, and 5 years old. From the outside, it looked like they had everything. A beautiful home in the mountains, a thriving business, 3 healthy kids, but the finances told a different story. Prosecutors would later reveal that Kouri was millions of dollars in debt. She'd been making risky real estate investments. Properties weren't selling. The pressure was mounting. Eric's life was insured for more than $2.2 million through several policies. One of those policies, prosecutors argued, Kouri had applied for fraudulently, forging Eric's signature. With Eric gone, Kouri stood to inherit everything: the business, the properties, the insurance payouts, more than enough to solve her financial problems. The night Eric died started like any other Friday. The boys were at a sleepover. Kouri and Eric had the house to themselves. She made him a Moscow Mule, his favorite cocktail. According to the medical examiner, Eric had approximately 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. 5 times. This wasn't recreational use. This was poison. Eric had never used drugs. He didn't even like taking prescription painkillers after surgeries. Friends and family said it was completely out of character. Investigators initially treated the death as a possible overdose. But Eric's family pushed back. Something wasn't right. They demanded a closer look. That's when investigators started examining Kouri's devices. And what they found would become the foundation of the prosecution's entire case. On Kouri's phone and computer, forensic analysts recovered searches for how much fentanyl is lethal. She'd searched for whether police could recover deleted messages. She'd also searched whether police could force someone to take a lie detector test. These searches happened in the weeks before Eric died. But the searches were just the beginning. The real break came when investigators started looking at her text messages, specifically the one she'd deleted. Phone records showed Kouri had exchanged hundreds of messages with her housekeeper. But when forensic analysts examined both phones, those message threads had been deleted from both devices. The phone carrier records told a different story. They showed multiple text exchanges on the same days the housekeeper purchased drugs. The content was gone, but the timestamps remained. Investigators brought the housekeeper in for questioning, and that's when the case broke wide open. The housekeeper admitted to purchasing fentanyl multiple times at Kouri's request. She said Kouri told her it was for personal use to help with pain management. But here's the thing. Days after Eric's death, phone records show Kouri texted the housekeeper asking, "Still have your hookup?" Her husband's body was barely cold, and she was already reaching out about more fentanyl. Prosecutors argued this wasn't the first attempt. They alleged Kouri had tried to poison Eric 3 weeks earlier on Valentine's Day through a sandwich. Eric had gotten violently ill that night. He recovered, but prosecutors believed it was a failed attempt, a dress rehearsal for what came 3 weeks later. In May 2023, more than a year after Eric's death, Kouri Richins was arrested and charged with murder. But that's not even the strangest part of this story. Between Eric's death and her arrest, Kouri had published a children's book. It was called Are You With Me? A story about coping with the loss of a parent. She'd done book signings, media appearances, positioned herself as a grieving widow helping other families through loss, all while investigators were building a murder case against her. The trial began in February 2026 in Summit County, 4 years after Eric's death. His 3 sons, now teenagers, would finally learn the full truth about their mother. The prosecution built their case on circumstantial evidence. No one saw Kouri put fentanyl in Eric's drink. No one witnessed the actual poisoning, but the digital trail was devastating. Expert witnesses testified about the phone data linking Kouri to the housekeeper. Every deleted message, every drug purchase, every suspicious search, all of it recovered and reconstructed. The defense argued that circumstantial evidence wasn't enough. There were no eyewitnesses. No definitive proof of how the fentanyl entered Eric's system. Reasonable doubt, they said. They questioned whether the deleted messages truly indicated guilt. Maybe there were innocent explanations. Maybe the digital forensics weren't as reliable as the prosecution claimed. But the jury wasn't buying it. After 4 years of investigation, weeks of testimony, and mountains of digital evidence, they needed just 3 hours to reach a verdict. Guilty. On all counts, including aggravated murder, which in Utah carries a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Kouri showed little emotion when the verdict was read. She'll be formally sentenced in May 2026. Her 3 sons will grow up without either parent, one dead, one in prison. Eric's family finally has answers, but no verdict can bring him back. No conviction can replace a father at birthdays, at graduations, at all the moments he'll never see. So what can we learn from this case? First, and this may seem obvious, your digital footprint is permanent. Deleting a message doesn't erase it from existence. Phone carriers keep records of every text you send, timestamps, recipients, message counts. Even if the content is deleted from your device, the metadata survives. Forensic specialists can often recover deleted files, browsing history, and message content from devices, even months or years after deletion. Consider that before you hit send. In Kouri's case, her own Google searches became prosecution exhibits. How much fentanyl is lethal? Can police recover deleted texts? The algorithm remembered what you tried to forget. Insurance fraud investigations often run parallel to homicide cases when there's financial motive. Large sudden policies, forged signatures, suspicious timing, they all raise red flags. If you're ever in a situation where something feels wrong, a spouse's unexpected death, suspicious financial behavior, trust your instincts. Eric's family pushed for investigation. That push made the difference. This case also raises important questions about circumstantial evidence. There was no murder weapon, no eyewitness, no confession. Yet the jury convicted in 3 hours. The prosecution wove together searches, texts, phone records, financial documents, and witness testimony into a narrative that left no reasonable alternative. The evidence told one story. And that story was this: Kouri Richins planned her husband's murder. She researched how to do it, she obtained the poison, she served it in his favorite drink, and she almost got away with it. But the phones remembered, the housekeeper talked, the digital breadcrumbs led investigators straight back to her. If you found value in this case breakdown, the evidence, the investigation, the way digital forensics actually work, consider subscribing. We cover cases like this every week. There's one more thing worth mentioning. That children's book Kouri published, Are You With Me?, was meant to help kids process grief over losing a parent. She wrote it while allegedly hiding the fact that she'd caused that very loss. She read it to children at schools and libraries. She signed copies for grieving families. The audacity of it is almost incomprehensible. To profit from a grief you manufactured, to counsel children through pain you inflicted on your own. Eric Richins was 43 years old when he died. He built a business, raised 3 sons, and planned for a future he'd never see. His killer was sleeping beside him. His boys, Carter, Ashton, and Weston, are teenagers now. They've lost their father to murder and their mother to prison. No justice system can make that right. But the truth matters. The investigation that brought Kouri Richins to justice showed that in the digital age, the perfect crime may no longer exist. Your phone is watching, the servers are listening, and somewhere in the data you thought you deleted, the truth is waiting to be found.